Hello, this is Ruth Bruner. I'm here at the Fire Museum on 121 6th Street in Windsor, Colorado, and I'm here with our Firettes, and they're going to introduce themselves and we hope today to learn more about the Firettes, the women who supported the Volunteer Fire Department in Windsor.
Right. And I'm Sue Buxman, and I joined the Firettes in 1968, and I was the last president of the organization.
Okay.
I'm Karlene Schneider, member of the Firettes since 1962. That was the year Jerry and I got married. He joined at age 18.
Wow.
And then after we married, I joined the Firettes.
So what was it like, Karlene, as a newlywed to be a Firette? How did that impact your married life, your social life?
Well, our married life was wonderful as members of the community to be able to give to the community through the fire department. And as far as when I joined, I was welcomed with open arms. The ladies who were already part of this organization were happy to have new members, and it was just a welcoming, loving family that we were part of.
Okay, and so what year was it, Sue, that you joined, and Karlene, that you joined?
62.
62?
I mean, she was 62, I was 68. Sorry.
68, so 62 and 68.
Right.
Where was the fire museum, the fire station in 1962 and then in 1968? Was it in the same location?
No, it was on the corner of, let's see, that would be 4th,
Fifth.
5th Street,
Across
close
from
to where Dan has his,
Memory Lane's end.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
right
across
along
from
in
the
there,
old
and that's
town
where
hall.
it was. It had a basement, and there was, I think actually, they had a fire truck, I believe, down there.
There were two upstairs.
Two upstairs.
Were there two upstairs?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, we have our expert, Dan
Yeah.
Low.
who's curator of the Fire Museum. We'll take a quick picture of him, and he will help us with our facts and details. All right, so tell me a little bit. I know that you guys were known as some of the best cooks in town, and some of the meals that you cooked for the firemen and the families and the different celebrations you had.
Okay. We had parties. We had the soup supper during Lent, and we always had oyster stew, which Irene Abbott always made, and she made the best. And we always had chili supper, chili and noodle soup and butterballs. And we always had Halloween, and we had Christmas. Christmas, we always had ham, but you always had potlucks, and there was always very good food. And I'm going to let Karlene tell you about the suppers that we made for the firemen when they had fires.
Well, you never knew when that time was going to come. So when there was a fire, well, it didn't matter, but say nighttime. And of course, those grocery stores weren't open at that time.
Yeah.
We opened our freezers. We went wherever we could find, if we didn't have something on hand at home, to make sandwiches. Most of the time, the girls had something in their freezer. We made sandwiches, cookies, pots of coffee, just anything that we could provide in the night, and especially at mealtime if the fellas were out a long time at a fire and couldn't leave.
So what are some of the biggest fires that you remember your men fighting? Longest standing fires?
The first one that I can remember, Renee was only 6 years old when the middle school burned. And so at that time, I wasn't able to help much at that time. The other one would have been the Severance mill that burned. huge, and it was a long time for those guys to be out.
That was the junior high. It was May 17th, I think 1964.
Yes, and she was born on May the 5th.
Oh, so,
And we had company that evening that had come to visit to see the baby, Dick and Jerry Oxner. And then when we looked out the window, when we looked out the window and there was that huge fire, it was just, you know, it was very scary. It was, you know, as we have lived here all our lives, here in town, and then to see something so loved and memorable as child, you know, throughout our childhood, to see that in full flame was just something that I'll never forget.
And then the other one was the Severance elevator, and I mean, that was like full of beans, so it smoldered, you know, a long time. Those guys spent a lot of time out there. And really, the people of Severance were really good about supplying coffee and just keeping them with food and stuff. Yeah.
so these were all volunteer firemen, which is hard for us today to imagine. What kind of sacrifices did you feel that your husbands made, or did you make as your family for the volunteer firemen?
A lot.
Huge. It was huge because
Holidays.
yes. Oh,
Yeah.
we played second fiddle to
Yeah.
to the phone calls in the beginning. We used to have phone calls. We didn't have all the technology that we have today, and so Jerry and Tom would have to call in to find out where the fire was.
Wow.
A big siren right up here went off, and then we had phones in the homes, and you called that number. Marianne, one of our Firettes, was one of the people that had a phone, so we called, and she would give where and the directions to the fire. But there were a lot of, I guess you'd call them sacrifices, but you know, it was all good. There were many birthday parties, many holiday dinners that were interrupted. Cold winter nights that those guys would have to get up and, you know, but they always had their gear. I don't know if, I guess that's a good word to call it. Their gear, their shoes, socks,
Their pants.
everything ready to go.
Right beside the bed
Yep.
at home?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, we did have one fireman that didn't have socks one night, and it was awfully cold, but I think he got pretty excited.
Yeah.
We teased him about it for a lot of years.
So, tell me about, I know that there was the Northern Ladies guys and the competitions that the firemen went to. I would see them training for those at, in the 70s when I moved here.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that. We would train down at the park, and I mean, the kids loved it. The kids from all over town would come over and, you know, stand out there so they could get squirted when we squirted the ball off, and you'd stand right in the way. But we had a lot of fun. We would compete with the other towns around northern Colorado, and we had competition in the summer, usually in June, and yeah, win trophies. And we always had a banquet in the fall, and they would pass out the trophies, and yeah, the men and the women usually did pretty good.
So the women competed also?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so what were you girls good at?
Well,
Hooking up to the hydrant.
yeah. we would hook it up to the truck. We would, you know, have the Y, and we would have the two hoses coming off, and someone would take the nozzle and squirt the ball off, and yeah.
Okay.
We had 4-man teams and 6 lady teams.
6 lady teams. Wow.
6 lady teams, 4 lady teams.
Okay. So, how many volunteer firemen did we have or start out with, and what's the history of that? I know it says over here, this wagon that we're looking at is 1925.
The fire department was founded in 1902.
1902 was the fire?
Yeah, May 9th, 1902. The original fire company was going to be called the Windsor Hose Company No. 1. That was on a Friday. And then the following Sunday, the men decided that they would call themselves the Windsor Volunteer Fire Department.
Windsor
So that's-
Volunteer.
That's when the fire department was founded. When they first founded, they were probably maybe 15 to 20 guys with no equipment. And then they had fundraisers and they were able to buy equipment. Ultimately, they bought, in the early 1900s, they bought a hose cart similar to the one we have here in the museum. They also purchased a ladder wagon. Both of those have disappeared over time. We only have a replica of what it looks like. And then it wasn't until 1914 that they actually bought a motor vehicle. I'm sorry, 1916. They bought a 1914 American LaFrance fire truck, and that was the first mechanized fire truck they had. Then in 1925, they bought this REO Speedwagon.
The REO Speedwagon, wow.
And then in 1941, the white truck behind us was bought when we traded this one in. And this truck then became, in the 70s or late 60s, became the fire truck that took the young ladies here to the musters or races that they went to. It was no longer an active fire truck.
Okay.
And then finally we bought the 1951 Ford, which you see in the back, as well. So those were the first 3 fire trucks we had here in town.
Okay. And what was the town population, or, 28 firemen, you said?
Yeah, about that when they first started, it was about 20 firemen.
Mhm.
And a couple of, there were doctors and editors of the local newspaper, and a whole smattering of different guys got together and then progressed with time into more, better equipment, more modern equipment for the time period.
All right, Don.
And then the Firettes came upon us in 62.
So,
Was it 62?
Yeah, right.
Oh, is
I
that-
joined in 62. I do believe they were organized ahead of that because there were like Irene and Betty Schaefer and those
Yeah.
girls
I
that
think-
were
I
ahead
think
of us.
Maybe 58.
I would guess.
Yeah.
I would say that's close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so the men were glad to have you.
Well, I hope
course.
so.
Of course. So, and things that you did, you had Secret Sisters, the Fireette Gazette, monthly meeting hostess. You want to speak about those?
sure. Let's see, the Secret Sisters, we would draw names, and then we would, during the year, we would celebrate with secret gifts for anniversary, birthday, and then we would have a party at Christmas, and we would reveal who our secret sister was.
Oh,
that
so
was
every
fun.
Christmas they found.
Yeah.
Did you ever guess and know who it was?
Not very often.
Not very
Did you?
Not too often. They were pretty good at
Yeah.
keeping it a
We
secret.
could keep it a secret.
How were the gifts delivered or dropped off? Or
Well, they were brought to the meeting, and everybody was supposed to carry a paper bag into the meeting, so you didn't know if something was in the paper bag
oh,
or
okay.
not.
That's a good
Yep.
plan as far
And
as
you're
that.
supposed to be, I don't know if we ever were, but you were supposed to be fined a quarter if you didn't bring a paper bag.
Okay.
I don't know if we did that.
There were lots of fines, and there were lots of money for different things in 25 cents. Each month, a monthly meeting, they had to pay dues.
I do,
And if
yeah.
you missed your dues, you were fined. And if you, I think if they cursed, they were fined also, but I don't know that for a fact.
So how many quarters did you put in there?
Oh, yeah, well, she did a lot.
Oh. So, tell us about the children that were the firebugs. I hadn't heard of that. That's
Yeah.
cute. And how a lot of them followed their fathers in the footsteps
Yeah.
as firemen.
Did.
It's okay. Got the train
Firebugs were just small children, and they loved all the parties. And at Christmas time, we had a Santa Claus, and everybody snuck their gifts into the fire station, and then the Santa would come in with this big bag of toys and so forth. And the little firebugs loved that. All the kids loved it, for that matter. But the little firebugs were just some of the smaller kids that, yeah.
Okay. And how many of them? Well, let's go move away from the train and over here and see that Dodge, that truck you were speaking of.
Oh, sure.
Okay. And
So this is a
Some more of the
Ford-
museum.
This is a Ford POW engine. This was the first engine that we had for the Windsor Severance Fire Department. We bought it in '51, and you'll see from the pictures next to the cab that it was originally white, and then when it was sold to the Galton Fire Department, it was then painted red. And we received it back, and now we're in the process of getting it ready for the Severance 100th anniversary parade,
yes.
which will be in August.
So you'll leave it red.
Unless we can find a benefactor who would like to paint it white for us.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go over here real quick.
And so here you can see the original, what our original hose cart would have looked like in 1902. It carried about 1,000 feet of hose, some axes, and it was hooked directly to the fire hydrant and then taken to the fire. That's a picture of what it would look like being pulled. That one's taking place in Telluride, Colorado. That's
Okay.
actually a racing team.
Okay.
And then over here, you can actually see some of the ladies, the Firettes. This is sort of a little bit of a display. These are the trophies that the Firettes won. And then you can see some pictures of the Firettes in the display case as well.
Well, let's get up close here. Not have a glare.
And those are the men.
Okay. And these are,
These are nozzles that are found, more modern nozzles that are found on our fire trucks and pieces of equipment. This is a locker simulating with the equipment that we would be using at forest fires. And then this is a gear locker from Kodak, excuse me.
all right. And then we'll go back and interview the ladies again. You want to come over here? Oh, we'll get you right here, I guess. Okay. I'm not as good at editing out as Cam. We may have to edit some of this out. That's why I need Tammy's help. Oh my gosh, I'm not good at editing it out. So I just don't stop it in between. All right, so we found that you were in a lot of the Labor Day parades. And what kinds of things do you remember from the Labor Day parades?
Well, we did pretty elaborate floats because we had some talented people.
I'm gonna just do this. It's all right.
So
Yeah,
Okay.
we did. They were beautiful. And Sharon Bruner was one of the girls that she was so artistic, and she would kind of guide us. We'd meet at the fire station. It would take us
a while because we did the napkin in the chicken wire.
No flowers from Sharon's nursery or
Oh, we had-
Morgan's
We
nursery?
made them.
yeah. And then we had some of her little trees and things, I think,
Yeah.
and sometimes that we put on them.
And they would give you money, so we would get like $50 for
Yeah, if we
winning
won.
Win first place.
And what did you do with the quarters and the $50 and the little things that you collected? What were those funds used for?
We bought a lot of stuff for the fire station. We bought like the drapes or rugs or just things that
Coffee pots.
coffee pots, things that needed. Yeah.
Okay,
Did you buy the piano or did you just sell the piano?
I think we sold it, but I don't.
We
think
sold
bought
it, but I'm thinking maybe it was donated.
Yeah.
all right, so now since the end of the official meeting of the Firettes in 2003, have you and the other Firettes kept in contact, or what have you done to replace that void of social fun?
We've kept in contact, I think. Yeah. We had coffee for a while. We would meet like once a month and have coffee. And we've had our soup suppers once in a while. We get together and have our soup suppers. What else?
Well, I just think because we're fortunate enough that so many of us are still here, that we cross paths many times. And So we were a close-knit group. It's family. And even now, if there's something that comes up, we support one another.
So was there any questions I didn't ask you that you would love to speak about, or any final thoughts before we close the interview?
Other than, I hope that someday, and I wish for our young folks to have that same type of camaraderie that we did. You know, it's some of the very special times that we remember and our children remember. And you know, you asked about were there some of the sons that followed. Yes, they have. There are several that did. And I think a lot of that came from being that knit family and the camaraderie that we had and the respect that they had for the department and their dads.
I believe that's true. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you, Sue Buxman. And, we have,
Other questions? Do you mind?
go ahead. Okay, you have to identify yourself.
Chris Kazian, Windsor Severance Fire Chief. So you guys talked a little bit about kind of playing second fiddle, I think is the word you used.
That's I did.
So
Did she
where was the
say
most,
that?
where is the most unique place you were left behind?
Oh, gosh. Most unique.
Or most memorable time you were left behind? At a wedding, at a christening, anything?
I remember one Easter when we had Easter dinner at our house, and he left like 4 or 5 times during the dinner.
4 or 5 times?
Yes, it was a lot.
I support that. I can remember that. As far as this real special time, I don't know, out of, a lot of times up and out of church.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was funny. Pastor Brokering was our preacher, and we had like 6 or 7 firemen that were in Bethel at that time. And then all their pagers went off at the same time. They all got up and left, and when church was over, he met them outside and he said, we're meeting inside, I'm redoing this sermon.
So it wasn't very uncommon for you to be in the grocery store, the hardware store, anywhere. Somebody who was working in that store would get a call and have to leave right in the middle. So
Right.
quite a bit different than what we're used to today,
Very
right?
much so.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And people in town understood. And if somebody was working and they knew they were a fireman, they knew they were gonna leave, and they accepted it.
That support that you, the Firettes, played in the fire department and making things happen certainly was not by happenstance. So your drapes and coffee maker and all those different things you did, what do you think was the one most valuable thing that the Firettes provided to the community?
To the community.
I asked a tough question.
You did.
Actually, just the support of the husbands. I think, we were a family that knew when there was a crisis, a fire, medical. Of course, we didn't have the medical back then that we have today, but if there was that continued support from the Firettes. We always knew that was just part of our job, was to be supportive of our husbands and supportive of the community.
And was that almost a mandate that if your husband worked for the fire department, you were going to be a Firette, or was that a...
No, that was a choice.
What?
That was a choice, but
Yeah.
I don't think there were probably any firemen that their wives really didn't. We were a pretty good group.
Yeah.
So for the most part, you had near 100% participation.
Pretty close.
I have no idea what that was, but that's good.